What's going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. And today I have another very, very special guest. I would call her up and comer, but it seems like she has already arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Kim Iverson. How are you doing, Kim?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, I'm great. It's
Well,
great.
look, it's my absolute pleasure to have you here. To be honest with you, I first heard about you about 3 weeks ago, and partially because people kept saying, "Hey, who have you heard of Kim Iverson? Have you?" I'm like, maybe I'm missing something, and then I kind of ignored it. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. And then I started seeing you appear on my personal timeline. And then I was looking through my analytics and I was like, what the hell? Half my videos are either directing me to her, my people to her, or her people that are viewing her to me. So I was like, okay, I got to check her out now. And I mean, you absolutely did not disappoint. So, just thank you for doing what you do. And congratulations on the exponential growth. I saw you reached about 16,000 subscribers in almost 2 months.
When I went to bed last night, not even 2 months yet. When I went to bed last night, it was 15,000. And I was like, all right, I hit 15,000. That's awesome. And then I woke up this morning, it was like an additional 1,500. So that was really, really a nice surprise today. Awesome. So maybe by the time this is over, this broadcast is over, it'll be at 17. But yeah, I launched it January 11th. So January 11th was the birthday of the YouTube channel. And so, yeah, it's only been a month and a half, like 5-6 weeks, not even 6 weeks yet. So
dope. So if you're watching right now, go help her hit 17,000.
Yeah.
A lot of you all probably already follow her, but if you have not, make sure you go subscribe. And even if you are, make sure you subscribe anyway, because you know that YouTube unsubscribes people all the time for telling the truth. So with that being said, a fun fact about Kim is that she was not always an independent journalist. I know a lot of you are probably trying to figure out why she has a perfect radio show voice. It's not like she didn't wake up one day and was like, you know what, I want to be an independent political journalist. Now I have a radio voice. It wasn't like that. She used to work for a nationally syndicated radio show. And she also used to work for a quote unquote, you know how California progressives can be.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and, why did you give the national fame up for something like, us little YouTubers?
Yeah, so I come out of mainstream media. That's my background. I was a radio talk show host for many, many years, most recently with iHeartRadio, and did a nationally syndicated show that was broadcast over the course of the time that I was doing it, about 50 different cities. So like Chicago, Nashville, San Francisco for a minute, you name it. Basically, the show was broadcast there. But I didn't talk politics. I talked about it was a show for women, so it was a lot of relationship talk, and there were some news topics that were related, that were somewhat political in a way, but more family news and issues that women faced. And so it was a really great show, really had a lot of fun doing it. But I definitely wanted to transition more to politics. And the problem with radio is, unless you're a conservative, you're not going to go anywhere in radio as a political talker. So that was a real a moment for me, because actually I had built quite a successful career in radio, and and to give up to give up the industry that I'd built quite a career in, because unfortunately there was just no avenue for me there, because I'm not a conservative, and I'm certainly not going to sell out and start talking like a conservative just to make a bunch of money and be broadcast in a bunch of cities. And believe me, I could have done that. I mean, there was absolutely an opportunity that I could have transitioned and been like a female Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, so you had your Candace Owens moment, or that one girl off of there's another woman off of what is that called? AMTV? You know what I'm talking about? That
CRTV?
CRTV. One of those, I know that, a bunch of letters. The Asian woman from CRTV who is just the worst. I don't even know her name. She's so bad.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody with their all of us, everybody can tell you at some point in their career, if you're a person of color, you had your Candace Owens moment where they were like, hey, you
could make a lot of money. Yeah.
Or Romy Millennial is another one on CRTV who she makes her money bashing socialism and millennials, but the only states she's ever lived in until recently, I think she finally moved to LA after she made all her money, was Canada and Japan, both of whom have some of the best social programs in the world. And she didn't leave as an adult until she made all her money from bashing both of those systems to LA, where she can now afford to bash both of those systems. It's insane to me.
But, so, I mean, that's the way it goes. You know, I mean, you definitely have opportunities to make a lot of money doing that. And certainly with my background in radio, I absolutely could have made that transition and had a big show in conservative talk radio. But I've got a moral conscience and was unable to do that. So I made the leap to leave radio 2 years ago, and mainly because my contract was up, and it was a question of, do I renew for several years and continue on the path I was going and doing the relationship, women's talk radio show, or do I want to go and pursue my real passion, which was politics?
Now I have to make fun of you a little bit. I got to poke fun at you because there's this consistent pattern I've seen with talk radio and YouTube, and the women who all do relationship shows. Why are y'all never in a relationship? Is that a problem or solution that you can find?
Yeah. People always ask me that because I was single throughout my entire career, giving relationship advice to people. I mean, literally maybe 1 million people throughout my career. I mean, I'm not even kidding. Maybe 1 million people throughout my career have called in my radio show to ask me relationship advice questions. And I was always single. But the big joke is because I failed so hard so many times that I know what to look out for. I know the roadblocks. I know the pitfalls. Just don't do what I do. It's so easy, right?
It sounds easy, right? I know. You one of those, I'm gonna give you this advice for you to take, but don't expect me to take it. I'm probably gonna mess up again. And then I'll tell you not to do that also. It's funny. God,
I think though it's funny.
Go ahead.
Well, it's really similar. I think the reason why people wanted my advice for so long was, I think for the same reasons that I do, why people have been attracted to my YouTube channel, which is I take a very logical approach to things, and I just assess situations, step back, assess, and then give my opinion on it. And that's what people really wanted. They wanted somebody to come to who they could ask a question to, who wasn't going to be emotionally involved, who could step back and say, no, I think maybe you did the wrong thing on that, or I think the other person was wrong, or whatever. And it's the same thing with my show now on YouTube, which is, just assessing situations and saying, this is what's up. I mean, let's just get real.
Yeah. And speaking of getting real, after you did the relationship thing, you did a little bit of politics thing. You thought, it was the progressive organization.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what happened was, like many of us, when Donald Trump won, it was shocking, right? And I had made the decision already that I was going to leave and pursue something different. I knew that I wanted to talk politics. This was in the height of 2016. And I was really shocked by Donald Trump, of course. And so I was angry like anybody, really. And when I started getting into so when I left my show and I started diving into the world of politics, I just, to be honest with you, I knew as much about politics as any average person. I think any average person following along in politics gets the mainstream narrative that you get from the mainstream news sources. And so I started kind of, the problem for me was, and what took me so long, I had like a real failure to launch. I mean, it's taken me 2 years to launch the YouTube channel. And it's because every time I would see a story, I would see the mainstream narrative, which everybody was then parroting on Twitter and on Facebook, and I would read through it and I would think, something's not right here. I mean, I just don't quite agree with this. So I would try to make a video on it. I would try to, I did a podcast. That's what I was trying to do. Naturally, radio to podcasting.
Yeah.
And I would try to do a podcast on it. But every time I would talk about certain things, I'd be like, I just don't believe this. Like, this doesn't resonate for me. And everybody's mad about this, or everybody's screaming about that, or everybody's going in this direction. And it's not adding up to me. So that had been the challenge for the last 2 years. I ended up seeking random political work, trying to get in with political organizations. I was hired by an organization that said they were progressive. So in my mind, progressive was Bernie Sanders progressive. And when I got hired and I actually did a show, my very first show for the company, I was talking about, well, Bernie Sanders is getting his, this was back in, like a year and a half ago. And it was,
but this is post-election, right? whenever they realized that the word progressive was very popular, so they were going to use it to describe everything.
Right. So they all started using it. So I did a story on a show on Bernie Sanders is potentially looking at a 2020 run because there were some hints that he was gathering up some people and some, snooping around. And I did that video and I was like, so this is kind of like amazing news that maybe Bernie's going to run again. And they shut it down. They were like, no, that's not who we are. We don't
How dare you decide to report the news?
Right. They were like, we don't want to champion any candidates. And I was like, wait a minute, I thought we were progressive. And they were like, and that's when I first realized, oh, you mean there's some people who claim to be progressive, but they're not progressive? Like, what's going on here? I didn't.
All over YouTube, you'll find that. I'm not gonna call no names, but I'll just.
Yeah, no, I.
And David Pakman, that is not directed towards you directly, but if you feel it's about you, take it how you want to. But there's some people that listen. Bernie made it cool to be a lot of things now, right? Progressive,
right.
Now Medicare for all is mainstream. It's funny because me personally, as a person of color, as a Black man specifically, as a person who's been disenfranchised by the criminal justice system, when Bernie first announced, he was the only person in really 4 or 5 decades who has ever openly said, I want to get rid of the prison industrial complex. We need to stop building jails. We need to stop investing in incarceration and start investing in jobs and education. He was the only one who had said that. He was the only one who would directly, specifically say Black people when talking about the disenfranchised. And now it's mainstream to care about people of color, but it's only, it's a fickle type of caring.
Oh yeah.
But everything he did now is mainstream. And so now it's kind of like you have to be careful when people say they're progressive, or be careful when they say they care about people of color. A lot of the times they don't.
Well, and people don't really know how to define it. Now that I've, so for the last 2 years, what I was doing was just learning. I mean, I really felt like I was learning everything there was to know about politics. I was working for, like I said, a political company, trying to report on political stories, and I stuck more to the mainstream stories. What I did was I chose not to give my opinion because my opinion was anti-establishment. And I started to realize this about myself. I mean, I didn't know, honestly, when I jumped into the political ring, I didn't realize that. I just didn't know, I didn't know that there was a difference between mainstream and progressive. I didn't really know that there was a big difference between, I just didn't know. I was like, I'm a liberal. That's what I know. I don't like Donald Trump and I'm a liberal.
A lot of people felt that way, in my opinion. And for me, it was because I was like so entrenched in Bernie Sanders' campaign when it first launched. Even myself, I was like, well, I thought that progressive, for the most part, and liberal were somewhat synonymous in progressive in the Democratic Party. Even though I was an independent, I'm like, well, they're more liberal, right? They're more progressive than the Republicans, at least,
right?
Maybe not 100% of the way, but they're better, right? Yeah, nah.
Yeah, I just didn't know.
It wasn't even close. It wasn't even.
And I
close.
think most people just don't know. I mean, unless you study this stuff all day, every day, it's hard to differentiate what's what and who's who and what's really going on and what makes a progressive a progressive. And I've got my own ideas of what I think makes a progressive a progressive. I know a lot of liberals have kind of adopted many of the platform points of the progressive movement, but to me, it is fundamentally getting money out of politics first and foremost. Once we get the money out of politics, then we can start really, then you can chip away and hammer at a lot of the other things like the military industrial complex, like the prison systems, like environment. And, because there's just so much money in every single industry that it's 100% controlling. I mean, it's so absolute. We're a nation on the take.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny that you say getting money out of politics, because I remember before his platform, Bernie's platform was Medicare for all. Before he discussed that, before he discussed the public system as far as the education is concerned, getting money out of politics was like when he said, "I'm not taking any PAC money," or "I'm not taking any corporate money," everybody was like, "Huh?" And literally, and it's not like we wanted money in politics. We're like, bro, how you gonna win then? Even Obama needed that money. What you gonna do? How you gonna hire people? What's going on? He was like, well, we need volunteers in every state. Hold up, what? So now you saying we gotta volunteer? I'm like, all right, man. I hope you know what you're doing. You're doing some weird stuff right now. And then what, 300 volunteers later, just in my school. And I went to community meetings all over the state. And I was just like, holy crap, everybody must have saw the same video I did. And because everybody else was kind of curious too, like, well, I'm listening now. How are we going to get it done? And you're right. Yeah. Getting money out of politics has become the litmus test in a lot of ways, because now people will look, okay, who do you take money from? Me personally, for example, right? There are a lot of progressives who feel that Elizabeth Warren is going to be a formidable candidate, and she may be. I don't personally think so, because and I personally wouldn't vote for her. Not even because the Hillary thing was a big problem, but she still takes corporate money. And people still forget that. Now, yeah, she's talking about introducing a redlining bill, but it's easy to introduce that bill in the Senate when you know for a fact it won't get pushed. Because why is it now that you're introducing a redlining bill, trying to pretend like you're doing something for the Black community when you have no tangible history of doing so? And then you got to start looking, well, why did she do it now but not then? Oh, let's look at whose money she was taking. And that's what it always comes back to a lot of the time. So you're absolutely right. What do you feel is like the second most important issue to progress? Because I think all of us agree that money in politics is like boom. But now we're in such I feel like we're in an arena now where you can still not take money per se, or super PAC money per se, and still get an elected office, even if you're a neoliberal potentially. So what do you think?
Yeah, like Beto O'Rourke.
Yes.
Like Beto O'Rourke would be that example there. Yeah.
That's a good example. I totally forgot about him, but good example. Yep.
Yeah. I definitely, number one is getting money out of politics. And I can really respect any candidate with any platform if they're willing to not be bought. And then it's like, okay, so your ideas are now your own and they're worth listening to. I mean, I might not agree with your ideas, but we can at least now come to the table and have an honest conversation about how should this country be run. I think the second most important thing for the progressives, for me, it's the military. It is definitely the imperialism of the United States going around and impoverishing nations and murdering people, essentially, all in the name of, we've just got this, the problem was after World War II, during World War II, we were a machine. I mean, we were able to just pump out we were able to save and win the war. And it was because of the machine that we had created. We were able to turn Navy boats around in 3 days. I mean, it was amazing. But after World War II ended, all of a sudden we had this huge industry and all these jobs and all this money. And then it began then this era of, well, we can't stop now. I mean, we got to manufacture more war. We've got to manufacture more problems because we've got to keep this industry going. And that's just grown larger and larger and larger. So I would say that is number two, is war. Being anti-war, I think, is another progressive. So you've got to be you've got to be hardline on getting money out of politics, and you got to be anti-war.
100%. And once again, that would probably fall into the third thing, which for most are number one because of their particular circumstances, which is universal health care, right? Because if we become
but that's now becoming like a co-opted platform, right? Exactly. Like everybody's saying they're for universal health care. So to me, that's not really the litmus test.
Yeah, exactly. It can't be. Exactly. It can't be the litmus test anymore. Well, so I can't say it can't be a litmus test, or I can say it can't be the litmus test, but I can't say it's still a litmus test because these people keep messing up and saying, like Sherrod Brown, I don't think that universal health care is realistic. And I've never seen someone's campaign end so fast in a 30-second video clip. That was impressive.
No kidding. The difference really between like an establishment Dem and a progressive Dem is that both of them are going to say, yeah, we're for Medicare for all. Yes, we're for universal education. Yes, we're for X, Y, and Z. But the establishment Dem is going to say, if it's practical, if it makes sense, if we can get it done.
Hell,
or not right now. We'll get there eventually.
Because Kamala, I'm sure you saw this. I think you even reported on it 24 hours after she made this hardline stance. Look at me. Hey, make sure the camera's on me, okay? Everybody, got my good side. Healthcare, okay, is a human right, and I came up with that stance all by my own. I didn't borrow it from anyone. Okay,
right?
We have to have Medicare for all. Literally, I don't even think it was 24 hours. I think it was like within a couple of hours They were like, her staff came out and said, hey man, just letting everybody know, she's also open to other options. Like she supported this bill, this bill, this bill, this bill, this bill. And so, yeah, she's also open to options that will include private insurance companies. And we're like, bro, really? Y'all, you couldn't hold off because you're lying anyway, right? So why not just lie the whole time? Just follow through with the lie. Like Andrew Gillum, I don't know if you're familiar with that situation where he was Medicare for all 100% of the time. The next day, he changed his website and was like, and even though I support Bernie Sanders Medicare for all, the fight for Medicare for all, I do believe we should be fighting for access to affordable health care and expanding the ACA. What the hell does expanding the ACA even mean, really? Like what does that even mean? But that's the point, right? It doesn't
universal insurance. It's the difference, right? Universal insurance versus universal healthcare. Like we don't want universal insurance.
Exactly. Now, speaking of anti-war, I'm sure that if people here are watching you, they already know, but some people may not know. One of your kind of claims to progressive fame right now is that you were probably one of two people covering Tulsi Gabbard when she first announced, covering her fairly. Let me put it like that. I won't say covering her, but covering her fairly. It was you and then myself. That was pretty much it. But what a lot of people probably don't know is really how much courage that took at that time, because the smears were coming in full effect. In case you didn't know, I'm sure a lot of you did. I've seen others in comment sections just pissed about the type of smears that other progressive journalists were basically perpetuating. And it seemed like it was in defense of Bernie Sanders in a weird attempt to try and basically say, you have to choose right now, Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard. They didn't really address any of the progressive aspects of her. They usually tended to neglect the fact that a lot of that was pre-2016 or 2015, before she, Nina Turner, and pretty much everybody else had evolved. And yet you, based off of your own research, based off of the time that you invested, because you had no personal interest and you had nothing really to gain by defending one or the other, because you hadn't established a crowd yet. You decided, you know what? I'm going to tell the truth. And the truth is, I believe that that Tulsi Gabbard is the best chance we have to beat Donald Trump. How did you come to that realization, and what made you kind of say, you know what, I'm going to tell the truth? I'm not about to be suckered into this divisive rhetoric that we've been seeing from some of the left.
Well, to be honest with you, when I launched the YouTube channel, that was one of my first videos, actually. When I launched the YouTube channel, the whole launch itself was gutsy, because I knew, I know myself, and I know that I have some very controversial viewpoints for people on Twitter and for people on Facebook. And so I've known that, well, you know, I'm going to make maybe some friends and probably some enemies, and that's just the way this is going to go. But the one thing I'm going to stick to, and the one thing I'm always going to be true to, is I'm going to speak what I really think. And that's just, I'm not going to compromise that. I'm going to really assess situations and speak what I think is the truth or what the reality is, and hell or high water. I mean, even if I get a bunch of hate, which, you know, I've got one video right now that I hadn't read the comments on it for a while, and I decided to read the comments this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I need to hire a bodyguard. I mean, there are
they say some crazy stuff sometimes.
Yeah, there were some that was like, wow, okay. And that was a different video. But you know, when it comes to Tulsi, I honestly, I know you say it, you know, you've said this to me before, that it took courage to come out and talk like that. But honestly, for me, it didn't, because I didn't know, you know, I don't know the YouTube community that well yet, right? I'm really new, and I'm really new to, I'm new to coming out and just speaking what I think in this environment. And so I don't know what's going to cause me backlash and what isn't. You know, I'm like naive.
That helps, right?
Right. So all I did was I was assessing the candidates. I was when she announced on Van Jones that she was going to be running for president, I go onto Twitter. I'm on Twitter all the time, and I always watch the outrage. I hate Twitter. I love Twitter, and I hate. I love Twitter because it gives me an insight into the loons, like the craziness that's out there. But that's also why I hate it. I read through the stuff on Twitter, and I'm like, what you know, where do you people even come from?
Well, a lot of them come from troll farms. There's actually a whole documentary on it.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so, you know, I saw the backlash against Tulsi, and I did the research myself. You know, that's what I do, is I then researched her, And then I watched the trends. I saw what the libertarians were saying, and I was like, huh, you know what these people don't realize is that this woman has the best shot at beating Trump.
Yeah.
Like all the progressives love her, so she's going to get all the progressives. And on top of that, she's going to get all these libertarians who love her.
A
And who
lot
else
of
can do that?
libertarians love
Libertarians
Tulsi. Oh
love
my
her.
God.
Right. And the mainstream people are going to vote blue no matter who, because that's what they keep yelling at us, right? They're like, don't divide the vote, don't divide the vote, vote blue no matter who. And I'm like, well, okay, then. So you've got a bunch of progressives you're afraid of. That's why you're yelling at us, right? You're yelling at us to vote blue no matter who, because you're worried we won't. You're worried we're going to vote third party. That's what you're worried about, which is a legitimate worry. So why don't you, if you're really a strategist, then what makes the most sense is to join the progressive side and to vote with the progressives. Because if you're worried they're not going to vote for you, then you need to vote with them, right? So,
yeah.
And then you get all the libertarians who don't want to vote for Trump. So Tulsi does, she still in a general election has the best shot on a head-to-head case against Trump. Her problem is going to be getting out of the primary.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that it's a mixture of, well, for going head to head against Trump right now, I believe that now that Bernie has announced and we've seen some of the support, I would say that Bernie has an equal amount of legitimate backlash as Tulsi does.
But he can't get the libertarians.
So he can't get the libertarians, but he can get the straight up conservatives. He can get Republicans to vote for him because for what? Oh, well, I know why. Well, basically, in some Republican states like West Virginia, a lot of the issues that we're worried about, they aren't really that concerned with. A lot of, they're kind of in a vacuum. Race, like the issues of race, prison industrial complex, even the military industrial complex doesn't really concern them in their minds. They care about healthcare, jobs, retirement, jobs, healthcare. That's it. So Bernie goes and speaks to those types of people. And I remember in the primary, he won West Virginia decisively. It wasn't even close. Here's what happened next. Even after the primaries and after the election had concluded, he went out to West Virginia and then he ended up like just fighting for workers' rights out there. They're like, what are you doing? You can't even win this state in the general election. Why are you here? It didn't matter. He was there for workers' rights. It wasn't about his campaign. It was because that's what he believed in. Same reason that Tulsi, for one, started so early. Two, is running with good God, the entire world against her at this point. How do you're hated by both Israel and Saudi Arabia? Yeah, for me, I'm like, well, shit. I mean, any doubts I had about you when Israel and Saudi Arabia does not like you, that means you're probably on my team. And so when I know that whoever gets out of the primary at this point, which I've recently found out, it's highly likely that they're going to be backing each other. And Bernie also made it pretty clear on TYT. He said he wanted somebody he can pass the progressive torch to, so to speak, and that she needs to be much younger, and that she needs to be a woman. And once again, that it needs to be progressive. That's who he is picking as his running mate.
I mean, I think we're all looking for a Bernie Tulsi ticket. I think everybody on the progressive side is saying that's the dream ticket. Absolutely. Exactly. 100%. That's the dream ticket. That's what we want.
And when that happens, both of them, either one who gets the ticket, like it's over. There's no, because Tulsi does win the libertarians. Bernie wins about every other demographic. And when they join their staffs together, it's going to be beautiful. I can't wait.
That's going to be a tough ticket to beat. I think, and I think the smartest thing Bernie could do is win the presidency, be the president for about 2.5 years and pass the torch.
Well, I don't think that he'll do that only because
I think he has to.
Why is that?
Because he is aging. And I think that you've got to give your VP a chance to run the administration and show what they're made of, so that when they campaign, they've got a strong stance to campaign on, because they've been president. We've seen that historically, it's vice presidents can win the presidency after just being vice president, but we see a higher rate of it when the vice president steps in as president for whatever reason. They've had to take over the reins.
So that would be true. But let me just speak for my senior citizens. Oh man, please don't say that he's too old to do things like that. Because I'm just saying that in 4 years, you've got to think about, he is getting older now. And what we don't want is
I mean, yeah, what we just want to make sure.
So what you're saying would be true in most circumstances, but also, so for example, Trump is probably the worst example, but Trump is actually older than Bernie at this point, which I did not know.
No, he's not.
Is it not? No, you're right. He's younger, but he's only like maybe a year and a half younger.
No, he's like 10 years younger.
No. He's in his 70s. Right now. Trump is the oldest president in history.
Right, but Bernie would be way older. Bernie's going to be approaching 80.
76
Trump is
if he wins.
No.
Or 77.
Bernie would be 79 to 80 if he wins. Yeah. And Trump right now is like 71 or something, 70 or 71. He's like 10 years younger than Bernie.
Oh, I gotta look this up. I can't remember his name. He's been the same age in my head for like 5 years. So, so Bernie Sanders' age right now. So he's 77 right now. So he would be 7, and he just turned 77. So he would be 79 when he's inaugurated. So yeah, he would be 80 now. But I will say this: speaking as a black man, and black don't crack. There are different types of age.
Asian does well too.
Yeah, I do well too. Now once y'all hit that hill, it goes whoop. But it's okay. And I went to Korean church, man. Look, these Achimadu, they were beautiful. Like 70 years old. You would never know they were 70 years old. And but the 70-year-old Asian women, they got their own unique style. That's how you kind of knew that they were 70. But with Bernie, normally I would say that's a good idea. But the thing is, Bernie is just a different animal. If he hadn't spent the last 2 years campaigning around the country and still making it to every single vote while introducing legislation, while, doing whatever he's doing in California, doing whatever he's doing in West Virginia and in Michigan and in Colorado, and still, for whatever reason, seems just as energetic as he's always been. And by the way, he runs like 3 or 4 miles a day, which is also something that I didn't know until like maybe a year ago. This dude, James says all the time, like, Bernie's healthier than I am, that he's in better shape than I am. And
and I believe that. It's just that at that age, anything can make a person turn for the worse. I mean, that's just the reality of it, is that, it takes one accident, it takes one breaking your hip.
Well, but once again, from 60 to 80, that could happen at any point. So now, as far as
it's just what I'm saying is that the second term, I mean,
the second term, I would agree with. It may be
that's why I say he's Well, that's why I'm saying I think he's got to pass the torch earlier. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's
because what I'm saying is if he wins the first term and then wins the second term, if he decided midterm, you know what, I want to step down, then Tulsi gets to take over for the rest of that term, and it wouldn't technically count as her first term. It would still be counted as Bernie Sanders' administration. Then she could actually go on. She would have a full term to prove that she deserves to win. She could have the entire second term, and then even have an entire third term to do the same things she has been doing. And potentially she could be the only other president other than FDR. Like, she could be the longest serving president if Bernie decided to turn over the reins in his second term. But
which I think he would have to do.
But given how hard-headed Bernie Sanders is, and I know this personally, I don't think he would turn it over. Now,
I think he would, because I think he's a smart guy, and I think that he ultimately would say, I think this is the right thing to do, to give them a shot so that we can continue this on. Because you can't do that much work in 8 years. I mean, as much as you want to, you're fighting an uphill battle, and you've only got so much that you can do in an 8-year term.
I say FDR would beg to differ, and Bernie.
FDR went 3 terms.
That's what I'm saying. Well, but he got a lot done in 8 years, but he was dead in the first few months of his last term. So,
but also war is very different. When you're in war, and also that was a very different time then too. We don't have as much partisan crap as what we've got going on now. It's just deteriorated.
They kind of screw Henry Wallace over. Here's
that was right. Sure.
And this is what I was going to say also. I'm glad you reminded me of that, because with Henry Wallace, you actually have a situation that has been recreated, and a lot of people didn't pay attention to this. So they got rid of the super delegate count for the first vote for the president only. However, there is an unfortunate possibility that the super delegates can choose the VP if they do not like who Bernie Sanders chooses. Now, I don't know for a fact that would be the case. Like, I don't know if they'll decide to overstep their boundaries that much, because if Bernie wins overwhelmingly, which it is looking quite likely that he will win overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll want to step on his toes like that. Because if you don't put her at VP, she's going to be Secretary of State, and then you're really going to have problems on your hand with her.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
So we'll see how it turns out. But that you do bring up a good point that it would be interesting to see him step down if he thinks it's time for him to, hey, let me pass on this torch. I like I said, but I just know Bernie, and Bernie is a hard-headed SOB. Like if
good, I'm glad he is.
That's why he's here.
That's right. He's been fighting the good fight his whole entire life. And it's like, I mean, it's just amazing to me that, now is his time. I mean, really, whenever anybody, and this is a funny thing, whenever anybody ever criticizes Bernie, all these like Clintonistas or whatever, whenever they criticize him, my retort now to them is, it's his turn. It's his turn.
Yeah, right.
It's his turn.
I know. Listen. Whenever that Vermont, I can't even remember his name because he's so unimportant. I forgot that there were other senators from Vermont.
Yeah, Leahy.
Yeah, Leahy. Yeah. Whenever he came out the first day, he was like, "Look, y'all,
Bernie.
I know I endorsed Hillary last time, but I don't owe Kamala Harris a damn thing. I need to keep my job. This man has raised $6 million. You think I'm about to endorse somebody else? Nah.
Yeah, no kidding.
That. I'll go ahead and hey, everybody, I was the first one. Don't forget when you're voting, come.
I love that Bernie raised that much money so quickly. I've been saying to people, because people are paying way too much attention to mainstream media and they don't have their ear to the ground. And when you have your ear to the ground, you hear all you hear what the people are really saying. And that's what everybody missed, when Trump was elected, except Michael Moore, he totally called it. But I kept saying to people, listen, he not only is Bernie still popular, he's more popular now. Like what people don't realize is he has gained. The movement has been growing underground while mainstream has been doing their thing. Bernie's underground cult-like following has been growing. And people were saying, no, he's losing steam. He comes out, he's going to run, he's going to lose. He doesn't have anybody anymore. And he comes out and $6 million, and it was like, really?
Like, because it was crazy. Because I'm like, you're saying that he's losing steam, while like somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is gaining steam off of policies as they stomp the country together. Which the reason that they asked him to stomp around the country to get people elected was because of his popularity. I was just kind of, it was weird. It was like, and then mind you, his organization that's ran by, and this is, by the way, in case people have not done their research, Nina Turner is, because this is what pisses me off, right? People have been trying to throw this whole Bernie is trying to, invoke the white savior complex. He doesn't actually want to elevate people of color. He doesn't know when to step back, and he's so hard-headed. I'm like, bro, okay, the definition of elevating people of color is having an organization like Our Revolution and having Nina Turner as the president of it after the DNC stopped her from speaking at the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because she was a black woman, not maybe because she couldn't speak well or we didn't have enough time. No, you didn't want to have the world see that black people do. Real black people support Bernie Sanders. Yep. And no one ever spoke about that. And now Bernie rewarded her, and the movement rewarded her by putting her in this position to be president. And oh, by the way, not only is she president, but they're successful as hell. Okay. Yeah. It's like they're just okay. They have victory after victory after victory for Democrats and Democrats and independents. Like, bruh, I don't understand why you think that it's because all the policies that he has are unpopular. Why do you think the AOC is so popular? When you can go, once again, they did not vet AOC whenever they first caught her on TV, because when she went on there and she had that little smiley face, she's so short, her legs were swinging like this. She was like, had her hands in her lap, she's rocking back and forth, and they're like, oh, so like, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? I'm a Democratic Socialist, and they were like, oh shit. It's too late now, Yeah. So, but that, once again, Bernie Sanders. And she got more popular when she said that.
Right. Exactly.
I've never even heard the word. I've heard of social democracy, but I've never heard of somebody calling themselves a Democratic Socialist before Bernie did. So it's like they were living in this delusions of grandeur that Bernie wasn't. It was laughable because everybody kind of knew what was going to happen when he announced. And I said this. I said, y'all think that when Kamala announced, it was cute because that was manufactured, right? They wanted us to believe that Kamala was the most popular candidate and that she was instantly the front runner. That's the words they kept using specifically.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I said,
right.
y'all think y'all know what a front runner is. Y'all think y'all know what an announcement is. I'm telling you, when Bernie Sanders announced it's going to be an event, that day was February 19th will forever be known as Bernie Sanders Day when he wins this election. I'm telling you, it's going to be because come on. People up at 6:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Has Bernie announced yet? Has Bernie announced yet? Has Bernie announced yet? Has everybody, like, they're scratching themselves like they're looking for drugs, waiting for Bernie to announce. He announces on Vermont radio first, then he goes on the news, and then he drops his ad all at the same time. While all this is happening, people are watching everything that he dropped. And also, oh, by the way, while y'all are watching all this, 3 hours later, I just raised $1 million while I was in the middle of talking to you. Like, come on. y'all knew he was popular.
I mean, that. So absolutely amazing and impressive. And it just proves our point, as progressives, that this movement is gaining. And I keep saying to establishment people that I keep fighting with, I just say, look, you either get on board or you get left behind, because we're going somewhere.
Yep. Hey, look, I for the last 2 years, we really saw almost a vetting season. Right, because people are like, we should be unified. We should be, but what that is that's, believe it or not, a call to neoliberalism, and some people don't even realize it. Because I'm not going to forsake my values and my ethics to work with somebody because they can pretend to have the same message as mine for political expediency, and that's what people have been asking us to do. So we've seen a lot of people fall off because sometimes you got to fire somebody up. You got to let people know, nah, they full of it. So Jimmy had to do that a lot, okay? And he took some hits for it, but as it turned out, a lot of people figured out Jimmy was right. Jimmy was right. Everybody, how long? I don't know how you were with Russiagate, because you kind of came after that hellfire took place. Where were you at on the Russiagate thing? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, so I always, and I still do, think that, of course, Russia did whatever they could do to meddle in our election. I think, we do it to others, and every country looks out for their own interests, and of course, they're trying to influence others when they think that there's a vested interest in it. Obviously, I think Russia would really like the United States to back off from all of the interventionism and regime changes and imperialism, right? Because it's not beneficial to them for us to be all over the world, meddling everywhere. So, of course, I think Russia absolutely did everything they possibly could, maybe even more than we know, to meddle in our election. But the collusion, I stopped there. I didn't ever think that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia. I was like, okay, now we're going crazy. Like, of course, Russia did something, but that's, to me, of course, we do it. I mean, we're doing it now to Venezuela.
Everybody
does it.
Has meddled in our elections.
China does it. I mean, North Korea, everybody's doing it to everybody. So that shouldn't be news. What it should signal to us, instead of us going like, Russia, 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 we need to go after Russia, we need to go after Russia. What it should have done, the reaction was all wrong. To me, the reaction should have been, okay, yes, they meddled in our election, but what can we do to safeguard our election process now? Like, what can we do? We need to have paper ballots or ranked choice voting, or, all of these different things.
And you know what? It's funny that you mentioned that. The only person to introduce a substantive election integrity and election justice legislation was none other than Tulsi Gabbard.
Wow, really?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, because
I didn't know that.
And this is one thing they're going to have to address, which is why they're trying to keep her off the debate stage. I think the legislation that she introduced is the reason. Like, yeah, the anti-interventionism thing is a good thing, but that's it's still similar, right, to what Bernie used to say as far as the proxy wars are concerned. She uses regime change, but he talks about proxy wars and quagmire. Right. But he talked about it. She introduced a Stop Arming Terrorism Act, right? Nobody endorsed it. Well, so I think 2 people endorsed it, but nobody in the Senate endorsed it. I think maybe except for potentially Rand Paul. I have to double check that. Nobody introduced the equivalent of that bill in the Senate. And they're all going to have to answer to why they don't want to arm, or why they want to keep arming terrorists. I don't see what.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. Yeah.
Election justice bill, paper ballots, automatic audits, things like that.
Right. Just protect our election. That should have been the narrative after. It should have been, let's talk about our election systems. Let's talk about what's going on here, because if a foreign entity is able to come in and meddle in our election, then we've got a problem. It's not, oh my gosh, let's get Russia. Let's attack Russia. Russia's the problem. No, because if it isn't Russia, it's China. If it isn't China, it's North Korea. If it isn't them, it's somebody else, right? Somebody's going to try to infiltrate our election because they want to sway the influence of the United States, obviously. So we need to do what we can to protect our elections from anybody on the outside, not just point fingers at a boogeyman. And then what they did was then they turned it into this whole, I feel like we're living in the 50s. Then they turned it around. They're like, oh, well, then no, Trump and Russia colluded. And I'm like, that guy didn't collude with anybody. That guy is, he was just, for one, I don't think he thought he was going to win. He was just looking out for himself and his businesses. I don't think he was sitting there thinking. And now they've gotten into this other narrative I'm watching on the news. They've taken it a step further, and they're now saying that he's an agent. He's he's out to actually destroy the United States with the tariff. Yeah, I mean, they're sitting there saying like Joy Reid when she tweeted, just a reminder.
How did I know? I thought you were going to say Joy Reid or Rachel Maddow. I knew it.
Right. Like when she started tweeting about, just a reminder that these tariffs, that the tariffs that are affecting the farmers, that Russia has a big agriculture, economy, and this helps Russia, like as if Trump is literally trying to now destroy the United States in order to help Russia. So it was one thing to just be making decisions that benefited Russia. Now it's trying to destroy our own nation in order to help Russia. I mean, what the hell? I mean, this is insane.
Yeah, that's a weird argument to make because Russia and China already have their own relations. And, as far as agriculture is concerned, but that doesn't really help. And the reason I say that, or help Russia, the reason I say that is because the allies of the United States are already not working with Russia. Like it's already a thing. So like just saying, oh, these tariffs are going to help Russia. If they were working with Russia, then now it's because they were working with them then and not us, and vice versa. If they're not working with Russia, then they're not going to be working with Russia now. It's a lie. But I mean, holy shit. I can't believe that even after the Democrats and Republicans both said, look, dog, we done stretched this shit out for 2.5 years. I don't know what to tell y'all. Adam
crazy.
Schiff, he tried his hardest. McCabe tried his hardest. Comey tried his hardest. Mueller tried his hardest. And they were doing these drops, right? And this is the smoking gun. This is the smoking gun. I'm like, yo, we got so many smoking guns. We can go to war with Russia right now. But just all the smoking guns that supposedly happened during the primary, the primary season general election and after. Now, here's what I would say. Here's my only pushback. I believe that Russia does interfere with our elections to a small degree, right? To a small degree. And the reason I say that is because if it was to a significant degree, like a legitimately significant degree, we wouldn't mention it because it actually makes our intelligence communities look like they don't have control, right? So those who do interfere to a significant degree, amongst those, Israel, right? So, and if they're like, well, what about Saudi Arabia? But Israel's okay because Israel's our ally. Israel should not be our ally. They are an apartheid country. Okay, they should, and because there's human rights abuses committed there daily. But then you start to look at our other allies and the other ones who influences our elections disproportionately. Saudi Arabia. Last time I checked, they also commit a lot of human rights abuses. Using our weapons on top of that. And then you start going down the actual list of all the people that we consider allies and also donate a lot of money to our elections. You also start to see the people who are allowed to contribute in one way or another in large sums to our elections. And then you have to also wonder, finally, okay, so why are we talking about Russia and why and not ever talking about them? And then the second thing is the timeline. Now, a lot of people lose with the Russia conversation because we've been pulled in 18,000 different directions, is that this never became a topic until the Democratic National Convention. And it was a convenient story because I was at the DNC convention in Philly. I saw the massive protests against Hillary that never made the television screen. I saw the Haitians outside protesting Hillary. I saw people had rented the vans with the digital advertisements saying, hell no Hillary. Like I'm talking about the people were flying banners. They had to go on the Craigslist, right? And hire people to be delegates for Hillary Clinton to just fill seats. It was literally that bad. They were trying to shut off the lights because Bernie delegates were so turned about supporting him that they were like, "No, we can't let people see this." So that morning, I still remember they were like, "Hey, this just in. Russia's interfering with our elections, and we think that WikiLeaks is now working with Russia." That for me was like, "Oh, they're full of shit," because I know WikiLeaks doesn't work for anybody. WikiLeaks just had a piece exposing Russia very soon before that, exposing their oligarchs that work for the government because they don't work for anybody. That's why Julian Assange couldn't seek asylum in Russia. He had to seek it in an embassy in England because he exposes them as well. And they know that, and he knows it. And I also remember Democrats loved Julian. There's actually article after article after article after article after article talking about how he should win a Nobel Peace Prize. He should win a Pulitzer Prize from New York Times, from CNN, from MSNBC. And I was like, maybe if you would have just said, well, Russia is the one who interfered with the elections, then I would have probably been like, I guess. I figured they would because they're a superpower. But when you say Russia did it by way of WikiLeaks, that was like, nah, I know that's not a fact. And then how the narrative conveniently shifted to Trump. And then the narrative conveniently shifted to it also Joe Stone's colluded with Russia too. Fuck it, whatever. And then, basically anybody who is not Hillary Clinton colluded with Russia. And then now, Tulsi is also apparently a Russian student.
Everybody's with Russia now. When
you think about where that narrative started, which is by trying to get a nonpartisan organization was working with Russia to take down Hillary. What they don't talk about the fact is Julian Assange sat down with Kim.com and he said, "Oh, if Hillary thinks she's going to win this election, she got another thing coming because I have all of her documentation and I am going to be releasing it." This could have been reported long before. If Russia was really interfering, they had every opportunity to say this is the truth. But every single thing that has happened up to this point was based off of two anonymous sources from the FBI that NBC said were credible. So it's really hard for me to be like, Russia has participated in as much interference as like a Saudi Arabia or Israel, because it's just like the facts don't really add up. Like we left Syria and ISIS was destroyed. We go back and they're back again. It's like, bro, okay, is there a pattern forming here? Why everywhere we go, there's terrorists? So I would be interested to see how it's all going to turn out. But
we won't know for a really long time. We're not going to know for a long time. But, and that's the thing is what I was reading earlier today is they're talking about whether or not they're going to release the whole Mueller report. And I'm like, I hope they do, because if they don't, then everyone's just going to speculate, right? They're going to use that to speculate and speculate and speculate and say, well, I'm sure that there was this in the report and there was this in the report. And it's like, if they just got the whole report and they read it, then maybe people would, maybe it would finally end the conversation. I just don't know if this is going to end. What I do have to say, though, is I think the reason why they went after Trump so hard, all of them, there were all these Republicans that also were going after him, like Comey. And I think that what we're seeing is anytime a candidate is, now Trump has turned out to be different, but his rhetoric was anti-war. And anytime a candidate is calling for taking the troops out of areas and backing off of areas, I mean, they just get smeared. We've seen it over and over again. And if you are anti-war, they will come after you. And so I really think that with Trump, one of the reasons why this kind of ended up going into this crazy direction and everybody was on board with it was because he was talking about pulling troops out of all of these regions and backing off of these wars. And so I think they were like really worried about that in the, 2 years ago. And they were like, oh gosh, okay, we've got to get this guy out of office. And I think that's why so many of them were working towards getting him out of office.
Yeah, a lot of you know who oh my goodness, I can't remember. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He was the one who discovered that America was actually taking chemical weapons from Libya, then transporting them to the rebels in Syria, and that's when all the attacks happened in Damascus that Assad was being blamed for. and I cannot remember his name right now. Oh my goodness, he's super popular. He was the one who actually came out and said, "Oh yeah, no, that was John Brennan who came up with that." And he said it in a casual conversation that got recorded. And they were like, "What do you mean?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, John Brennan was put in charge of a disinformation campaign whenever he was done being director of the CIA. That's his whole job right now." And he's also part of the reason why all these CIA operatives ended up getting news analyst jobs.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Well, how do you figure?" He was like, "Do you understand how much a defense contract is worth? Do you know?"
Lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah, there is a lot of money in that.
They don't want that money flow to stop.
Of course. And so that's why anytime a candidate is against, I mean, just like I mentioned this in one of my shows, McGovern, who ended up getting
Seymour Hersh was his name.
Okay.
That's why. That's what it is. Thank you for that, Homer Usaris.
McGovern, when he ran against Nixon, it was Nixon's second term, and McGovern won the nomination, and he was he was like Tulsi Gabbard, very pro-peace, anti-interventionism, anti-war. And, the Democrats came out swinging, and they created Democrats for Nixon. And McGovern lost every single state except like 2 in the general election. I mean, he got creamed.
That was not JFK, Jim Carter, right? Jimmy Carter. That was one of his lowest moments in history, because he actually campaigned against Ray McGovern. That was like the one time I'm just like, oh my God, why did I have to learn this? You learn so much about some of your heroes. Sometimes you just wish
right?
You stop reading.
But this is what happens to you. If you're anti-war, they will come after you. They will do everything they can to make sure you don't win. And when Trump won, and it was a shock to everybody, and this guy's talking about pulling troops and America first and getting out of the wars around the world, I think that's why they all ganged up and they said, we got to figure out a way to get this guy out of office. He's dangerous. And they kind of amped up this narrative. Now, I'm not saying the guy isn't dangerous. He is. I mean, the guy's got, we've got a loose cannon sitting in the White House for sure.
We got a loose cannon who is simultaneously a puppet.
Well, like he's like all kinds of whatever. I mean, this guy,
Because remember the first time he was like, you know what, this is stupid. I want to pull the CIA out of Syria. Lord, baby Jesus. I have never seen so much. I mean, the second time was when he said he was going to pull the troops out of Syria. That was the next crazy event. But remember, he said, I'm going to pull the CIA out of Syria. Oh, well, look at that. Oh, a little gas attack over here, just conveniently happening right after you say something like that. Then he did the missile launch, right? Yeah. So then the next year, he was like, you know what? This is silly. I'm going to pull the troops out of Syria. Oh, look at here. Another convenient gas attack. Isn't that crazy? And then they made sure not even 24 hours later to launch those Sidewinder. Not even 24 hours later, there was no independent investigation. And in my opinion, I said that they launched the missile so they can cover up the fact that there was no sarin gas attacks. That's one of the things that I firmly believe. And then it came out later. Jim Mattis said on February 2018, he was like, so about that, there is actually no proof of the chemical attacks are bad. But we're gonna go find some, but we don't have any. It's like, bro, you just launched missiles at another country without proof of anything. And now you're telling the entire world, oh, you made an ouchie boo-boo. Like, you made a mistake.
We said that about Iraq. It was an ouchie boo-boo.
Our bad. That's not, oh my, it's crazy for me to even fathom that happening here.
Yeah.
The world would be in chaos if that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, could you imagine?
Launching a bunch of Sidewinder missiles on Texas, for example, Texas oil. So, oh my God, woo, boy, they would send everybody. Everybody got to go. Only people that can stay are infants. Like,
right.
So it's crazy to me that we can violate the sovereignty of other nations like that. And people haven't caught on yet that, he's not in control like y'all thought he was going to be. And then they the sycophants start actually defending his puppetry. Like, that's what kind of kills me, right? Like, what do you feel about? I know you've dealt with the MAGA people in your comment sections at this point, I'm sure. So
I actually haven't seen that many of them.
Really? Oh man, you got to use certain buzzwords in your titles, and I guess so.
But
you'll start seeing them
I'm sure I'll get them today.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They'll start defending Trump, everything, because they're some of the reporters there, right? So the same reporters who loved him because he was anti-establishment, the same reporters who loved him because he was critiquing Israel, critiquing Saudi Arabia, because he was supposed to be anti-interventionist, isolationist, supposed to pull us out of NATO and all this other stuff.
Right.
They have all pivoted and started justifying it. It's just part of the plan. It's just part of the plan. Man, this plan is about 3 years into the mix, and it seems like nothing has actually gotten better. It's actually progressively worse. This is the worst plan I have ever seen before in my life. I'm not going to lie.
He doesn't have a plan.
He doesn't have a plan. The plan has been,
and I think once he got in there, maybe he had these ideas when he was running, is like, why are we on all around the world? Why are we doing all this? What is with this? What is with that? And I think he had all of those thoughts. But then when he got in there, they were easily to say, hey, listen, this is what's up, and this is what's going on, and this is why. And so you're going to,
He worked Bolton. Bolton was Hillary's pick.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. Mattis is Hillary's homeboy. And then on top of all that, remember when he sat down with Henry Kissinger? I don't know if you remember that. Did you know that? He sat down with Henry Kissinger. It was a viral video on Facebook that, of course, later on got taken down because it was supposed to be like a casual thing. And this Henry Kissinger looked in that camera and said, I can't wait to work with Trump to bring together a new world order. And I'm like, oh, so we just gonna act like he can just say that shit in front of God and everybody? Like nobody worried about this. This is the man that lit Cambodia and Laos on fire just to test out weapons. That's the same guy. But Trump is supposed to be, he's outside of the establishment. How can you be outside of the establishment when your entire cabinet is literally the same establishment from 40, 50, 60 years ago in some cases? It doesn't make sense. So I want to go ahead and cut it off there, because I want to have everybody first go to Kim Iverson's page, subscribe. She does freaking fantastic work.
Thank you.
And she's going to be one of the leading voices in the election coming forward. I promise you that she will be one of those people predicting the same thing like us. If you try to screw over Bernie Sanders, you're going to get down on Trump. We told y'all, look at what we're dealing with now. And so go subscribe right now. Go follow her on Twitter at Kim Iverson Show, or the Kim Iverson.
Twitter is Kim Iverson Show.
Okay.
And if you want to find my YouTube, you could just go to actually the KimIversonShow.com, and that'll route you to the YouTube.
Perfect. Yeah. So make sure you do that. Before we go, do you have any thoughts about about what you saw over the last couple of days as far as the really surprising amount of unity between the supporters of both Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders?
That didn't surprise me at all, actually. I think that many of us love both of those candidates a lot. We would love to see them together on a ticket. Absolutely. I think with Bernie, he's just got the fire, and he really does. The thing that's great about him is that he's really able to get people motivated and people inspired. He's an inspiring candidate. And Tulsi Gabbard is such a strong woman, and she's just a real leader who keeps her cool. And it's amazing to me that she keeps her cool even when she's being grilled. And
I studied Tulsi because of that. I study her, actually.
I mean, she's amazing. She's really impressive. She's really, really impressive. So I love both of them. I don't think that's a surprise to any of us that, I think people are thinking, oh, that would split. But I think all of us are championing behind both of them and want to see them both together. So
yeah. And matter of fact, while we're here and everybody's watching, like 250 people watching right now, shout out to y'all. Let me just go ahead and dispel this rumor that has been going around that you will split the vote and it will screw both Tulsi and Bernie over. Let me explain to y'all how this thing works. So we got a little insight last election that Martin O'Malley had the ability to pass off his pledge delegates to Hillary, as long as they were okay with it, of course. But he had the ability to pass off his pledge delegates to Hillary Clinton. And they had made a deal prior to that. And at the convention, that's exactly what happened. Now, in the same scenario with Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, if they don't have each other, best believe the Kamala Harrises and the Cory Bookers of the world are going to stick around to the convention. And they will pass their own delegates and super delegates off to whoever has the best chance of beating Bernie or Tulsi. And so at this point, not only are we faced with the reality that it's not going to split or hurt either candidate to have them both pull 15, 20, 30% in every state that they compete in. And not only that, but have their money and resources behind them in order for them to combine together after the general election. But if they get to the Democratic National Convention and they don't have each other, there is a very realistic possibility that the Democratic Party will screw them royally. And we will once again have the election taken out of our hands as we work so hard to put one or the other there. That is what divisiveness will do. The Democratic Party is counting on us to be divided. They are counting on us to attack each other. They are counting on us to believe stupidly that Elizabeth Warren is more progressive than Tulsi Gabbard when only one of those candidates take corporate money. They're counting on that. The only way that, and me and Kim had a conversation about this the other day, the only way that we can get this future that we can actually see us living in, the future that's to believe in, as Bernie Sanders would put it, is to work together and stand unified against the establishment instead of trying to figure out ways to divide for the greater good, quote unquote, or for political expediency. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And I will not vote for an establishment Dem.
Will not.
And I think that that's an important message to also say to them is like, listen, you can put up whoever you want, but I will vote third party, or I won't vote, or something. I will withhold my power. That's the only power I've got. Yep. So I'm not going to give it away. That's for damn sure. Just because, like, okay, well, I guess that's what I'm going to do. And I think when we hold that power and we understand that power and we harness that power, and I know a lot of people think, oh, that's dangerous, but to me, it's not. No, we're fighting. We are here to win a war, and this is just one of the battles of the war. But we will win the war. This is how we do it.
We are winning. Do you know what got passed out today? I haven't released my video about it yet, but yesterday, because a bunch of people have announced Bernie wasn't the first, do I think he'll be the last. But yesterday specifically, they passed out this form that says you will run as a Democrat, and when you become president, you will preside as a Democrat. And I'm like, what are you saying? What? Because you didn't pass that form out before.
Yeah,
it's
to me, to make sure
they saw that 6 million and they were like, "Oh fuck, we can't beat this dude."
Yeah,
we can cheat if we want to, but I think they will. But it's just something different.
Boy, all hell is going to break loose if they try the same shit again. I just can't imagine that they'd be so dumb. But if they did, I mean, because I'm always surprised by the stupidity. If they do, I mean, that's it, guys. Third party. We will create a third party. We cannot continue on with them if they do that. We cannot continue on with them.
You go third party and organize locally. That's how you fight back. Or in the case of Kim and myself, we'll just keep on telling the truth because somebody's listening. $6 million didn't come because people aren't listening to the truth.
Yeah, that's right. That is absolutely right.
So with that,
YouTube is mainstream, by the way, and I know we kind of started off with that. With me coming out of mainstream media, and I actually think that YouTube is the mainstream media.
According to all the statistics, that would be the case. And if you have any doubts about that, well, let's just look at how Russiagate isn't really talked about as much anymore. And also look at the fact that Tulsi Gabbard seems to be on all these networks. Granted, they're not doing her any favors. They're constantly trying to berate her and attack her.
Assad.
Yeah, right. Good God, boy. I didn't even know who Assad was in 2012.
Gosh, no kidding.
When Barack Obama leaves office, all of a sudden, I have never stopped hearing about this man, how dangerous he is. But he wasn't dangerous before 2011. Isn't that interesting? But essentially, they are bringing Tulsi on, and it seems like, why would you keep doing that? If she isn't popular, she's not even polling at 1%, Kim. She's not popular. Why would you be giving her this? Because she is popular.
Yeah, she is very popular.
And y'all saw on Twitter what happens when you interact and you talk shit about Tulsi. You get lit up. Everybody's clicking on your links, your videos, whether or not you're supporting or going against her. You know that low key, Tulsi Gabbard and her anti-interventionism, the way she carries herself, the way she's willing to fight back, is mainstream because we all feel the same way as Tulsi Gabbard. And so once again, that is the proof that we are dictating the narrative. YouTube is, and they are figuring that out finally. And that also, once again, is proof that we're winning. So keep up the fight, everybody. Go once again, subscribe to Kim Iverson's YouTube page if you have not. And hey, more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.